There's a strange moment that happens to many people somewhere around the six-figure mark. A moment where the number they spent years chasing finally appears in their bank account, on a paycheck, or inside an investment portfolio. And instead of feeling permanent, it feels strangely temporary. The number itself carries emotional weight because for decades it has been presented as a symbolic financial milestone, a line separating survival from stability, pressure from comfort, uncertainty from control. Yet for many people, the experience of reaching $100,000 is not the emotional finish line they imagined. In many cases, it becomes the beginning of a completely different psychological relationship with money. Part of the reason is mathematical, but another part is deeply behavioral. Human beings do not evaluate wealth in absolute terms. We evaluate it relative to our environment, our past experiences, our expectations, and the systems surrounding us. $100,000 in one decade does not psychologically behave the same way in another. $100,000 in a low-cost environment feels radically different from $100,000 inside a high-cost urban economy, where housing alone absorbs a large percentage of income. The number stays the same, while the system around it changes. And this creates one of the most important financial illusions in modern life. People often believe they are pursuing a fixed target when the target itself is constantly moving. For most of the 20th century, crossing six figures carried enormous symbolic power because average wages, housing costs, and consumer expectations existed within a very different economic structure. A middle-class lifestyle required less ongoing maintenance. Homes were smaller, subscriptions barely existed, education costs were lower relative to income, and the social pressure to continuously display lifestyle upgrades was dramatically weaker than it is today. In practical terms, $100,000 once purchased a larger percentage of long-term security because fewer systems were actively extracting recurring expenses from everyday life. Today, the equation looks different. Inflation is often discussed as a simple rise in prices, but psychologically, inflation behaves more like an invisible erosion of certainty. Most people do not wake up one morning and notice that money has become weaker. Instead, they experience tiny adjustments, repeated thousands of times across years. Rent increases slightly. Groceries become subtly more expensive. Insurance costs rise. Digital subscriptions multiply. Interest payments quietly expand. Expectations for what counts as a normal lifestyle continue climbing upward. Each individual increase appears manageable, but collectively, they reshape the meaning of financial stability itself.
This is where the psychology becomes important. The human brain is remarkably adaptive, which is useful for survival, but dangerous for financial perception. Once income rises, spending expectations often rise with it, not because people are irrational, but because the brain rapidly normalizes improvements in comfort. A slightly larger apartment stops feeling luxurious after several months. Faster technology becomes standard. Convenience transforms from occasional reward into baseline expectation. Financial upgrades slowly become invisible, and once invisible, they stop generating emotional satisfaction, even though they continue generating financial obligations. This process is commonly called lifestyle inflation, but the phrase almost sounds too harmless for what it actually represents. In reality, lifestyle inflation is a form of identity expansion. As income increases, people unconsciously redesign their definition of what someone like them should consume, own, experience, and maintain. The danger is not simply higher spending. The danger is that fixed expenses grow faster than psychological awareness. A person earning $50,000 with low obligations may possess more financial flexibility than someone earning $150,000 while supporting a highly expanded lifestyle structure. The math behind this shift becomes clearer when viewed over long periods of time. Imagine someone earning $100,000 annually in a modern city environment. After
after taxes, housing, transportation, healthcare, debt payments, insurance, food, and recurring subscriptions, the amount remaining may be dramatically smaller than outsiders imagine. Now add inflation over 10 years without equivalent real wage growth. Even if salary numbers rise, purchasing power may stagnate or decline. The individual feels as though they are moving forward numerically while remaining psychologically stationary.
This equation appears simple, but it quietly explains why so many people feel financially confused despite earning more than previous generations. Human beings naturally focus on nominal numbers because nominal numbers are visible. Salaries are visible. Home prices are visible. Investment balances are visible. But purchasing power is relational. It depends on what those numbers can actually do inside the surrounding economy. Historically, this pattern has appeared repeatedly during periods of economic transition. In the 1970s, many households experienced rising wages alongside rising inflation, creating a strange psychological contradiction where income increased while financial anxiety also increased. The same phenomenon appears in modern economies today. People often assume that financial confidence comes purely from income size, but confidence is actually connected to predictability. When the cost of living becomes unstable, even relatively high earners begin feeling uncertain because future calculations become harder to trust. There is also a social dimension that makes $100,000 psychologically unstable in the modern world. Wealth perception is heavily influenced by comparison. Before digital life, people primarily compared themselves to neighbors, coworkers, or local communities. Today, comparison occurs globally and continuously. Social media exposes individuals to curated lifestyles at industrial scale, subtly redefining what feels normal. A person who objectively belongs to a high global income bracket may still feel financially behind because their comparison group has shifted upward endlessly. The result is a strange emotional treadmill, where financial milestones lose their emotional permanence almost immediately after being achieved. This is not because people are greedy. It is because modern economic systems continuously recalibrate expectations. Consumer economies depend heavily on perpetual dissatisfaction because satisfied consumers slow down consumption. Entire industries are built around converting temporary insecurity into recurring purchases. And over time, this shapes identity itself. People begin organizing their self-worth around maintaining a moving financial image, rather than building durable economic resilience. One of the most important shifts a person can make financially is understanding the difference between visible wealth and structural wealth. Visible wealth is easy to recognize because it appears externally through cars, homes, clothing, or status consumption. Structural wealth is quieter. It exists in low debt obligations, high flexibility, strong savings rates, ownership of productive assets, and the ability to absorb economic shocks without collapse. The reason $100,000 changes everything for some people and almost nothing for others is because the structure surrounding the money matters more than the number alone. A person with modest visible consumption but strong structural positioning often experiences dramatically lower financial stress than someone with higher income trapped inside large recurring obligations. This is why some individuals earning moderate incomes quietly build long-term stability, while others earning far more remain financially fragile for decades. The system rewards not only income generation, but expense containment and behavioral consistency over long periods of time. Psychologically, the most significant financial transformation occurs when people stop viewing money primarily as a consumption tool and begin viewing it as a control mechanism over time, stress, and decision-making freedom. At that point, financial thinking becomes less emotional and more systemic. The question changes from how much do I make to how much flexibility does my financial structure create? That shift sounds subtle, but it completely alters behavior. Consumption becomes more intentional. Delayed gratification feels less painful. Savings stop feeling passive and start feeling strategic. In many ways, $100,000 still matters deeply,
but not for the reasons people often assume. Its real significance is not luxury. Its significance is visibility. It is often the first financial threshold where people begin noticing how economic systems actually function beneath the surface. They begin realizing that inflation changes perception, that recurring expenses quietly dominate long-term outcomes, that income alone does not guarantee security, and that psychological adaptation can erase satisfaction faster than expected. The modern economy constantly encourages people to chase larger numbers while ignoring the systems attached to those numbers. But over long periods of time, financial stability is rarely determined by isolated milestones. It is determined by the relationship between behavior, expectations, obligations, and purchasing power across decades. And once someone truly understands that relationship, money stops feeling like a scoreboard and starts feeling more like architecture, something designed carefully over time, rather than simply